she found out about a group of helicopters for rent for the Lord and
That's great.
arranged for the
Oh,
students to be taken by helicopter with a Jesus film
yeah.
up to their place they would spend the summer and
Oh,
show the Jesus film all over the mountains of Albania.
oh.
And it was the beginning of a real opening, a place where lots of people came to the Lord.
Welcome to the Eden Podcast, where we true the verse of Genesis 3:16, and we discover that God didn't curse Eve or Adam or limit woman in any way.
It is wonderful.
Yeah. Huh. How about Nay Bailey?
Nay Bailey. I would say she might be, after Vinette, the most loved person in our ministry.
Hmm.
Nay is 90 something now. She's still on staff, but she's pretty quiet now because she got some health issues. Nay came from Louisiana and met Jesus, not with our ministry, but with some friends. But when she was in college at LSU, I think, she really wasn't walking with the Lord a lot. And then she had met this guy, and so she was going to go see him. And he was in the Navy in Hawaii. So she was going out to visit him and stopped and told a friend that she had met at a Cru event that she had gone to, uh, who said, well, if that doesn't work out, let me know. And we'll have a training in Mound, Minnesota, which
Oh,
is where our first training place was.
really?
And so she went and um, she just had, her heart had been so encouraged by some time with some Christians that she'd just been with. And she's like, I really want to be and do what you have for me, Lord. And she went to be with this guy who was a Christian and was excited to spend time with him. But the longer she was visiting there, the more she felt God saying, this is not for you.
Oh,
And so finally, she broke off the relationship with him, called her friend, said, how do I get up to Minnesota for that conference? And so she ended up going up there and joining staff, just like that, and was sent to Arizona, where the starchiest leader we had was, who helped her really grow. And she tells about how she quit smoking and things like that. But then when she was applying for staff, she was horrified at how bad our systems were to get new staff. And Dr. Bright was talking about, we're going to have 1,000 staff. And she says, you have no way you're going to get 1,000 staff with the system that you have.
oh,
And so somebody told Dr. Bright about her vision because she'd been working with helping get placed orphans into homes.
hmm.
And so she had all sorts of things about how you place people and things. And that's what we would be doing, is placing people.
Hmm.
And so Dr. Bright called her and asked her to come work at our headquarters, which was in California then. And she stayed there, and um, well, first, she stayed there, developed a whole HR system, personnel, and did that for about 6 or 8 years, and then went back to work on the field. But I had actually met her when I was in high school
Oh,
because she and I had a friend in common who was involved with Young Life, and I had met Jesus and was now involved with Young Life. And she came to see her friend to talk to her about, how do I know Christ really?
oh.
And so we met at that. And later, when I met her, when I was joining staff, and she said, we've met before. I said, I think so, but where? And she remembered where we'd met. So anyway, she ended up back at headquarters after a while and developed our whole personnel and HR kind of, and then moved on and went, worked mainly in Eastern Europe, mostly as a speaker. And in her story, she especially tells the impact that it had on her life to be trying to share Christ with people who were afraid to even talk to someone
Yeah.
because their life was so controlled by the Communist Party at that time. It's a powerful story of
Yeah.
true transformation, using your gifts and seeing God take you into new opportunities you'd never imagined.
So this is just a taste of of her calling, our legacy, Pioneer Women of Cru. And you've got 15 stories in this volume. Now, is it out? Is it available now, or is it
It's
gonna?
out, it's
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
Um, it's available at Cru, but you can get it cheaper at Amazon.
Let's- either way is good. Now let's get more personal here, and we've been personal, but I'm aware of some of your story and your concern for prayer always, Judy. We really appreciate that, and your concern for prodigals. So now you happen to have the experience of a prodigal in your own home, and he ended up getting some special care from a special woman who has just graduated and is now with the Lord. Can you tell us about Sarah Trollinger?
I can tell you about Sarah Trollinger. Sarah was a school teacher in Orlando and just was concerned as she saw more and more of the students. She was a high school teacher, and more of the students were just getting messed up, getting into drugs, making bad choices. And there was so little help for the families,
Hmm.
for the parents to know what to do and for the kids to have opportunity to know better. And she was talking to the Lord about it one time, and he said, I want you to quit teaching and I want you to start a home for troubled kids and call it House of Hope.
Now,
She had no money,
as a teacher though, wasn't she able to share her faith in public schools and help the kids that way?
not much. No,
No.
no, not too much. She could do it some, but not to make the difference that she really would like to see.
So then God pulled her out,
He
and what did
pulled her
she do?
out,
Yeah,
and so she said yes. And at her service, which was just last Saturday, at her memorial service, they told stories of how in the early days they had no money for the next thing they needed. Like she needed a place to call House of Hope.
sure.
And somebody told them about a place, a home with a couple of houses there that was for sale, but she didn't have the $100,000 or whatever it would be to get them. But she prayed, and somebody called and he says, I heard you want to buy that property. We'll do it for you.
Oh,
And, and so she had a place. Now it needed a lot of work. She had to
yeah,
get volunteers.
yeah.
She was amazing at getting people to give, to getting people to come and work, to getting things taken care of. And so they just began with about 6 girls, I think. And for the first 10 years, it was a girls program. And then in about, I forget the year, she said, well, we need to help the boys too. And so they decided to have a boys program. And it just so happened that this young boy that God had sent to my husband and me, um, came to us at almost 10 years old from his drug addict prostitute mother. And he'd been living with his grandparents, but they were already raising his half sister who was older. And they said, we can't we can't do it. We can't add one more. And so, long story, but we got connected and we agreed to get trained by the county to be foster parents. And so he came to live with us, and we really worked and worked with him. He was in shock over living with us because he said, I don't think I've ever sat at a table to eat dinner. before. Uh, and he said, I can't watch whatever I want on TV. I have to go to bed by 10 o'clock. I have to go to school every day. And so
Yeah.
we had some challenging times, but then he got a little older and got into middle school and got in with a gang and made a lot of bad choices and was in trouble mostly and spent most of his time at school in alternative classroom, which he thought was normal. And so finally, the principal called me in and said, he just is doing so many things. Oh, and he was 2 years older than the kids in his grade
Uh,
because he'd not been going to school for much of his early life. And so he's the sixth grade boys that he's got when he got there in sixth grade. You know, sixth grade boys haven't grown yet. He was the age of an eighth grade boy who have grown a lot. And so he
mhm.
found out he could be a bully and take money from people and everything. And the teacher said, if there's one more, the principal, if there's one more event, he's out of here. And we said, oh dear. So we started looking around at places where we could put him because we just didn't know how to help him. We'd been trying, we had counseling, and we were both working pretty much full time. And so the Lord led us to the opening of the Boys' House of Hope. And he was the second boy into the program. And Sarah just was so excited to have him, and especially that he was the son of Steve Douglass, the president of Cru. And um, and at first he was basically afraid and good, therefore, not to get in too much trouble. And then on June 2nd, his house dad, wonderful man, Mike, and his wife Rose were the house parents. Mike led him to Jesus,
Oh,
and he made a real commitment. And the rest of his time at House of Hope was spent growing in the Lord, learning lots. They pretty much pretty in influenced them greatly for the Lord all the time. They had chapel every week and they went to church on Sunday and all sorts of things. Sarah is the one who made it all happen. She had a helper and then she had staff, but it was her vision, it was her strength of person and character
mm,
who got people to contribute, to come up with program. They got counselors and um, it was an amazing place.
mhm.
Uh, it still wasn't perfect. If the kids, when they finished and graduated, which it took our son a year and a half to graduate, they had school too. Um, if they didn't go back into a situation where they would have strong help and guidelines and
Yeah.
barriers and the Lord being made an important part of their lives, they often didn't make it as well. But
Mm,
Josh came home into a good place and he did really well
mhm.
until we let him go back to school.
Mm.
Uh-huh. And he found his old gang friends.
Yeah.
And so we ended up, I homeschooled him the rest of the time. And he just went like this on a walk with God, not walking with God, walking with God, not walking with God. And he didn't ever deny the Lord, but it just wasn't the guidance that he needed. It wasn't the important person in his life. And Sarah Trollinger, even when we were no longer in the program, was always checking with me on how Josh was doing.
Good.
And she's just a powerful woman. And at her memorial service, there were several hundred people there, and everyone who spoke, people who were donors, people who were on the county part of the program, leaders who had led, and students who had graduated and walked with God from there, giving their testimonies. It's very powerful. And
Mhm.
it was one woman saying, how can I make a difference for these kids, Lord? And he said, quit your job, trust me.
Yeah.
And he led her. And she's had, I don't know, hundreds of kids who have graduated. Not all have made great progress afterwards, but many have done so well and are so strong in the Lord now.
Mm. And at our 316 day uh, meeting at the Bill Bright Strategy Center there with you in Orlando, we had a luncheon before we had our event, and you introduced this tall woman to Joy and myself. We were thrilled to meet her and to get to know her a little bit. Yeah.
Well, she is a woman that God used in many ways
Uh-huh.
and believed God for impossible things.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sure, when we do that, God tends to respond.
God tends to respond. That's an understatement. Yeah, he sure does. I want to ask you a question, Judy, about the book itself. So I noticed on the cover of the book, there's a lady's name, Carolyn West. How did you and Carolyn get to be on the cover of that book?
Well, Carolyn deserves more credit than I do for the book, but in our ministry, my name is more known than hers
Now,
because
I'm bringing this up because I go to Joy and I have gone to a local church for a long time. We know wonderful believers in the Lord that have had, that disciple Joy when she was a little girl, and these wonderful saints, and they all deserve to be in a book. So, how did you go about putting this book together, and how can we go about, different all of us who are listening and paying attention, how can we get that book to honor these people that are just giants in the Lord?
well, it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I had worked with Carolyn for 10 years. She was my entertainment hostess for when Steve was president for
Hmm.
the last 10 years. And what I knew about Carolyn was she was a strong person and she got things done. What I found out was she also had great vision for how to do this. And she even was a good writer and editor, which so I got a lot more than I thought.
That's great.
And she just, you have to have somebody who'll publish it. And for us, it's our ministry that
Uh-huh.
published it.
Yeah.
Uh, you can get self-publishing. You're not going to get a lot of big publishers uh, if they're not known names.
Hmm.
And so it's a beautiful thing to think of telling the stories. Putting a book together may not be a first step. Maybe having a regular place in a church newsletter or a ministry newsletter where you tell a story, because
Hmm.
that's all we've done here is tell stories.
Hmm.
Now we've gone back and gotten their early story as well as their ministry story and the new ways that God led them into opportunities.
Now you
But
you you put together a list that was what, 40, 45?
yeah, and we're gonna keep going. We
Oh yeah.
just our crew press said that 40 we have 45 right now that we may get to. And they said that's too many for a book. That would be a huge book. They don't have that kind of vision for how much they'll read. And so he says, let's just do the first 15. And we're already working then on the next uh, volume of the book. And to me, I know them. I knew I came up with most of the names, but we went out to other people. But we also had to get people to write the stories because Carolyn and I it'd take a long time for us. I have a lot of other things I'm doing, so I couldn't write a lot of stories, and she couldn't either, though she did write several. So we went back to people in the Cru writing area in our publications
Hmm.
and asked different ones of them to write a story. And so that's where a lot of them are former Cru people who knew these people and could also do. So
Hmm.
any church or ministry could do something like that to say we're going to tell the stories of this case the women that God has used. You know the stories of the men who have led, and I could tell you that all the people who had led in our ministry whose men's story had been told because that's who was showing up and doing it. But the women had played such incredible roles, sometimes alongside their husband or a single woman alongside a leader, but sometimes they just had an idea and took off and did it. And one of my favorites was in Albania. Con- I forget her name right this minute. I forget names a lot now. Anyway, Corey is her name. And she went into Albania when it was just not yet open
Yeah.
from communism. And our ministry was ministering there. But she realized that most of the students at the university they were trying to work at um, went home in the summertime up in the mountains, and it's very mountainous and hard to get up there. And it just so happened the Jesus film had just come out and been translated into the Albanian language, or maybe Russian, because they would speak that as well.
Mhm.
And so she found out about a group of helicopters for rent for the Lord and
That's great.
arranged for the
Oh,
students to be taken by helicopter with a Jesus film
yeah.
up to their place they would spend the summer and
Oh,
show the Jesus film all over the mountains of Albania.
oh.
And it was the beginning of a real opening, a place where lots of people came to the Lord.
And they were that was officially atheistic and one of the darkest places in the world prior to
Right.
that. And the Lord used her to spread the light.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So those are the kind of stories in the book. They're really fun to read. Some of them are scary a little. Some of them are just like, wow, who would have thought of that? Like renting helicopters. They almost crashed one of them too. So it was a little scary some.
Wow. Oh, thank you, Judy. I'm going to remind people you're listening to the Eden podcast. We're talking with Judy Douglass from Campus Crusade for Christ. She was the 2025 recipient of the True 316 Medallion Award,
So honored. Thank you.
and we're so proud of you and all those who participated in that event. We were just thrilled, and I'm still learning good things about you, Judy. This is really good, really good. So thank you so
So,
much, people. We want you to get a hold of Her Calling, Our Legacy, Pioneer Women of CRU, of Cru,
yes.
by Judy Douglass and Carolyn West. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Judy. All right.
Thanks, Bruce.
All right.
God bless.
True 316 Foundation is the home of the Eden podcast. Join us for $3.16 a month or more. Let's true the verses on the key passages on women and men. Go to true316.com/partner. True 316 is strengthening and encouraging many, and we're getting stories every day of lives changed through our ministry. We're the home of the Eden podcast, and we're getting the word out that God didn't curse Eve or Adam or limit woman in any way. Our volunteer help is wonderful, and we grow stronger with each new true partner who gives to the True 316 Foundation so that we can cover the costs to do the technical work of the Eden podcast, to coordinate our True School workshops like the 2-week Eden workshop on Genesis 2 and 3, and to make the True 316 Foundation function in its outreach to scholars and students around the world. You can give now with a one-time gift. And better still, you can join now and become a monthly donor. We call our monthly donors our true partners. Please join now by going to true316.com/partner.